Have you ever been somewhere that felt oddly familiar, even though it was your first visit? For people who have past life memories, events like these trigger an astounding experience. True reincarnation stories may inspire you to seek your own past lives if you do believe in it. These stories start with children vividly recalling their past lives and the journeys of investigators to find proof. The concept of reincarnation. Reincarnation is the idea that old souls are reborn into new bodies, and it has existed for thousands of years. It's part of the Hindu and Buddhist traditions. It's also become quite popular among many non-religious people. Some insist that it's real and that stories like the following are proof of its existence, while others insist that it's all a bunch of nonsense. Whatever you believe, these stories are certainly creepy enough, but does that mean reincarnation really exists? Listen to these stories and decide for yourself. The Pollock Twins. In May of 1957 came a tragic day for John and Florence Pollock of Hexham, England. Their two young daughters at the time, Joanna 11 and Jacqueline 6, were walking with their 9-year-old friend Anthony to church when they were struck by a reckless driver. The two sisters sadly were killed instantly. Anthony passed on the way to the hospital. The woman who struck the children was under the influence of many drugs and later admitted that she purposely hit the children in revenge to losing her own children to the state. She was put in a psychiatric hospital, but not before she shattered the Pollocks' lives. The Pollocks were deeply saddened over the loss of their children. A year later, a miracle would fall into the Pollocks' lives. Florence and John became pregnant, giving birth to twin girls on October 4th, 1958, naming them Jillian and Jennifer. From birth, the parents noticed many resemblances between their new daughters and their deceased ones. The first thing was a birthmark on Jennifer's left hip. It was in the same place, the same birthmark that Jacqueline had. Another thing that was odd was a birthmark on Jennifer's forehead that matched a scar that Jacqueline had gotten from a fall. As the girls became older, the similarities became more undeniable. The family had moved from Hexham to Whitley Bay when the girls were babies. Then, when the girls were 4, they moved back to Hexham and the girls started pointing out landmarks despite ever being there. They pointed out the school which Joanna and Jacqueline had attended and even knew the Hexham Abbey, a playground that their deceased sisters absolutely loved. This stirred up the parents a bit, both devout Catholics, and Florence didn't want to acknowledge John's theory that the twins were a reincarnation of their beloved deceased daughters. The more eerie evidence that came, the more it was hard for Florence to deny the case. One day, the twins started asking for certain toys. These toys were stored away and belonged to Joanna and Jacqueline and were never even seen by the twins, but they remembered the toys as if they were their own. When Florence brought the toys out, the girls divided the toys up exactly as their sisters had. They knew each toy by name, even remembering that they were brought by Santa Claus. Florence and John even recognized the similar personalities that each twin had with an older sister, which could happen in genetics, but eerily, as Joanna had been very protective of Jackie, the younger sister, Jillian seemed more mature than her twin sister. Jillian, who was born 10 minutes before Jennifer, also looked out for her twin just as Joanna had Jacqueline. The parents noted that the twins even loved the same food and games as their older siblings. Florence didn't want to come to terms that her young daughters could be a reincarnation. But soon, something she overheard from the twins completely changed her mind. The twins started talking about the car accident in detail. They even played a game where they recreated the accident. Jillian was cradling Jennifer's head, telling her, "The blood is coming out of your eyes. That's where the car hit you." Not only that, but Jillian and Jennifer were severely frightened and anxious while near cars. They awoke screaming many nights about being hit by a car. When they would play outside and a car started near them, they would scream, "The car is coming to get us." When the girls turned 5 years old, the memories of their past lives slowly faded away and they went on to live normal lives. The case of the Pollock twins has long been cited as proof of reincarnation, but many have argued that the twins' memories were nothing more than influence from their parents' mouth and their 4 older brothers sharing memories. Is this a case of reincarnation, or is it just simply a miraculous coincidence? You decide. Shanti Devi. When she was just 4 years old, Shanti Devi began telling her parents eerily specific details about her old life in a town 75 miles from where she was born, and a place that she had never been before. Religion and philosophy have long discussed the possibility of souls, but it was the claim of a young girl named Shanti Devi from Delhi, India, that made a rather convincing case for reincarnation in the 1930s. Shortly after she learned to speak, Devi regaled her parents with stories of her past life in a town neither she nor her parents had ever been to. Devi claimed to recall her previous life in shocking detail, and her account drew the attention of reincarnation researchers the world over. Simple events would trigger memories of her past life, like eating a meal that reminded her of foods that she used to enjoy in her old days, or while getting dressed, she would tell her mother about the clothes she used to wear. Devi eventually informed her parents that her previous name was Lugdi, and that she had died shortly after bearing a son in October of 1925. She had added uncanny details about her labor pains and the surgical procedures that she had underwent. Such facts, it seemed, couldn't have even been conjured up by even the most imaginative child. When she revealed the name of her past life husband, Devi's family was shocked to discover that he was still alive and lived precisely where Devi had said she was from. A historic meeting was arranged between them that not even science could quite explain. Born on December 11th of 1926, Shanti Devi appeared to be a perfectly normal baby, until around the age of 4, when she began to ramble on about a past life in a town called Mathura, nearly 75 miles away. Devi recalled in startling detail all the shops and streets in the town. She also began to speak of her past life husband, a merchant whose name that she refused to reveal until she was about 9 years old. But she did tell her parents that he was fair-skinned and had a wart on his left cheek, and that he wore reading glasses. Despite the unusual details of her memories, Devi's parents dismissed her recollections as mere childishness. But when Devi revealed that her past life husband's name was Pandit Kedarnath Shabe, sometimes referred to as Kedarnath, a friend of the family decided to find out if there was any truth to what she had been saying. The friend sent a letter to a merchant named Kedarnath in Mathura to inquire about Devi's unusual memories. To the friend's surprise, Nath wrote back confirming all the details. He also agreed to send a relative to Devi's home to gauge the situation. In an effort to test her knowledge, the relative was brought before Devi first and introduced as her husband. Devi wasn't fooled and said no, that this was her husband's cousin. Shocked, Nath and the child that he had with Ledki, now 10 years old, entered the home themselves. Upon seeing them, Devi reportedly burst into tears. Nath requested to speak with Devi on his own, and by his own admission, claimed that each response that she gave to his questions was entirely accurate. He found the replies to be quite correct and was moved to tears. An investigator on the case in 1937 recounted, "It was as though his dead wife was speaking." In addition to forming a commission to investigate her case, Mahatma Gandhi invited 9-year-old Shanti Devi to his seminary in central India, as reported in 1936. Shanti spent several days with Kedarnath and his son before they had to return to Mathura. Saddened by their departure, she pleaded with her parents to let her take a trip to her former home. She promised that she could lead them directly to her old house, and perhaps to persuade them further, she explained that she had a box of money buried there. Devi's parents relented, though considering the story had captured the attention of Mahatma Gandhi, they hardly had a choice. The famed Indian leader set up a commission to investigate the astonishing case, and in November of 1935, a dozen researchers joined Devi and her parents on the 3-hour train ride to Mathura. As one of the investigators recounted, once getting out of the railway station, the girl was put in the front seat and our carriage went ahead of all the others. Necessary precautions were taken that no pedestrians should be allowed to lead the way. The driver was instructed to follow the route indicated only by the girl, without caring as to where he went. Sure enough, Devi had no problem directing the group to what she claimed was her former home. Along the way, she noted various streets that hadn't even been paved earlier and buildings that weren't there during her previous life. The driver confirmed that these observations were correct. While exploring the house with Kedarnath, a member of the commission asked about the buried treasure that she had mentioned. Shanti Devi promptly ran upstairs and headed straight to a corner of her room, declaring the box was hidden beneath the floorboard. Kedarnath opened up the flooring and indeed found a small coffer, but it was empty. Shocked, Shanti Devi began looking inside the hole, certain the money was there. Kedarnath then admitted that he had taken the cash after his wife's death. Devi's reunion tour of Mathura continued to her former parents' house. She not only recognized it, but was also able to identify her old father and mother in a crowd of more than 50 people. She embraced her parents from her former life, who wept bitterly at her sight. And though she wished to stay in Mathura longer, Devi's current parents and the investigators were soon headed back to Delhi. In their report, the commission found no rational explanation for what they had witnessed. Shanti Devi never married and lived with her parents until her death in 1987, at the age of 61. However, Her story lives on, courtesy of a book written by Swedish author Sture Lunderstrand in 1994, which was translated to English in 1998. A naval officer of the Pearl Harbor attack. One reincarnation story left an impression on Dr. Frederick Lenz, who wrote in his book, Lifetime's True Accounts of Reincarnation, about the verified claim by a boy named Charlie, who at the age of 4 recalled his death at Pearl Harbor. Mary was shocked when her 4-year-old son Charlie said, "I died once, and it hurts." It all began when Mary took her daughter and son to a cliff diving performance, and on the way back to their car, Charlie blurted out, "I died once." Mary thought he said dived and asked him when he had dived. Young Charlie quickly corrected her, "No, I died once, and it hurts." Mary asked him how he died, and he replied that his leg was badly hurt. Over time, Charlie's story was pieced together through these conversations. In his past life, he was born an only child named James Kellow from San Francisco. When he was in his 20s, Kellow was a naval officer and served on board a warship. The ship was bombed and exploded. James and 3 other men made it onto a lifeboat, and when they got to shore, James dragged the only surviving crew member onto the beach, and then James fell onto the beach and died. Mary decided to take Charlie to visit the decommissioned USS Alabama, having misheard the name of the ship. She didn't find James Kellow on the ship's roster, and the guide told her that Alabama was never hit, but the USS Arizona was. While there, Charlie scooted about the ship as though he were a seasoned sailor. Later, his mother began research on the USS Arizona, lost during the attack on Pearl Harbor. Eventually, she was able to check the Arizona roster and found an officer, James Kellow from San Francisco. Dr. Leans verified these and other aspects of Charlie's story, including the recovery of Officer Kellow's body and those of the men in the lifeboat after the Arizona was struck with a Japanese torpedo bomb. The bomb hit the ship's magazine and exploded on December 7, 1941, during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. The ship is still lying at the bottom of Pearl Harbor, and the USS Arizona Memorial just out onto the water, just above the ship's hull. Reincarnation of a priestess and mistress of Seti I. The reincarnation story of Dorothy Edie is a fascinating story that began when she died at the age of 3. She broke her vow of celibacy when she became his lover, but to make matters worse, when she became pregnant, she committed suicide to spare the pharaoh public humiliation. She fell down a staircase and was pronounced dead by the family doctor. Imagine the doctor's shock when he received a call to come back to the house, not even an hour after he had left the Graven parents, who were now telling him that their little girl was alive. Eventually, Dorothy's past life obsession destroyed her marriage that ended in divorce. However, she remained in Abydos, working with the Egyptian Department of Antiquities. This was the beginning of Dorothy's lifetime belief that she was a reincarnated Egyptian priestess who lived 3,300 years ago. Her knowledge of ancient Egypt astounded archaeologists. The revived Dorothy no longer spoke with a British accent, but now with an Egyptian one. Few people had the privilege of seeing inside the temple of Seti I, but the department wanted to test Dorothy's claims. She began having vivid dreams of a temple with a lush garden. Archaeologists led her into the dark temple and asked her to describe it. She constantly begged her parents to take her home, home meaning Egypt. She passed with flying colors, describing everything inside the temple, even though she couldn't see anything. Instead, they took her to the local museum, and when Dorothy saw the Egyptian statues, she ran over to them and kissed their feet and hugged them, declaring to her parents that these were her people. Outside, she had pointed out where the garden had been, and upon excavation, tree stumps were unearthed. Dorothy enjoyed a full life working with archaeologists at the ancient temple of Seti I site. When Dorothy found a picture of the Egyptian temple of Seti I, she told her parents that it was her home. She was given the nickname Seti, meaning Mother of Seti, in honor of her son. Her obsession with Egypt led her to move there with her Egyptian husband and to name her son Seti. Her contribution to understanding ancient Egypt was highly valued. She soon recovered her memory of being Bentreshet. Bentreshet. She was the priestess and the mistress of the pharaoh, Seti I. Gus Taylor. 1 year before Gus Taylor was born, his grandfather, Grandpa Augie, passed away. In Augie's younger days, his sister was murdered and dumped into the San Francisco Bay. Nobody in the family spoke of this tragedy and buried the family secret. 18 months after Gus's birth, he began claiming that he was his own grandfather. However, the family assumed Gus was just being a kid and making things up. And then Gus shocked everyone when he began talking about his dead sister. Gus claimed that God gave him a ticket after he died, allowing him to travel through a hole to be reborn. Bruce Whittier had an odd reoccurring dream about an old clock. Soon those dreams turned into nightmares. In the visions, Bruce dreamt that he was a Jewish man, Stefan Horowitz, hiding from Nazis in his house in the Netherlands. After being discovered, Stefan and his family end up at Auschwitz, where they die. The dream and the clock haunted Bruce for years. He could even draw the clock from memory due to his vivid dreams, and later he discovered the clock in a local shop. The owner told him the clock once belonged to a German officer stationed in the Netherlands. James Leininger. James Leininger was a young boy from Louisiana who at the young age of 2 started having vivid and disturbing nightmares about being trapped in a burning aircraft. His parents, Andrea and Bruce, reported that James would twist and turn, yelling, "Airplane crash! On fire! Little man can't get out!" During the day, James seemed to be obsessed with airplanes, and he would draw detailed pictures of battle scenes from the aerial perspective. He also played with his toys in a way that seemed to reflect a plane crash, flipping his toy aircraft and saying, "Plane on fire, little man can't get out." When his parents began to ask him more about this, James revealed that the little man was him. He said he had flown a plane called a Corsair from a boat called an Atoma. His father, Bruce, was intrigued and started researching despite being skeptical. To his surprise, he found that the USS Natoma Bay had been an escort carrier in the Pacific during World War II, and that it was involved in the Battle of Iwo Jima, among others. This was a shock because the Leiningers had not taught their son anything about World War II, Iwo Jima, or the USS Natoma Bay. The story got even more compelling when James started to recall more details. He said that he had been shot down by the Japanese, that his plane had taken a direct hit on the engine, and that he had died near Iwo Jima. He said his name was James, and his friend in the previous life was named Jack Larson. Bruce discovered that there had indeed been a pilot named James Houston Jr., who was killed in action near Iwo Jima. Houston's plane was hit in the engine by Japanese fire and went down, just as James Leininger had described. Furthermore, a pilot named Jack Larson had also served on the USS Natoma Bay. The Leiningers eventually took James to a reunion of veterans who had served on the USS Natoma Bay. There, James was able to recognize names and recall experiences of his claimed past life. Again, not everyone interprets these experiences as evidence of reincarnation. Some propose that cryptomnesia, meaning unconscious memories, fraud, or coincidence could be explanations. However, the Leiningers and many people who study these cases argue that the specific details that James recalled would be difficult to explain otherwise. Research into these phenomena continue. So what do you guys think? Is reincarnation real? Do you believe in reincarnation? Many researchers have dedicated their lives to the study of reincarnation using various scientific protocols. This has resulted in well-documented cases that seem to point to the existence of reincarnation. 33% of Americans, including 29% of Christians, think it is, and some 10% of them report being able to recall their own past lives. Many people around the globe have incredible stories about reincarnation that are mind-bending and astonishing. The belief is the body is merely a vessel while the soul is immortal. Therefore, the soul will move on to another human body or an animal. It's common for children to recall stories of their past life, but those memories fade as they get older. Reincarnation, the idea that we live multiple lives, is a popular topic in shows like The Dr. Oz Show and series like Life, Death, and Reincarnation, The Ghost Inside My Child, and Who Was I? My Past Lives. Many people are drawn to the concept because it suggests that we get multiple chances at life, which seems more merciful than the idea of eternal hell. Does our consciousness live on when our bodies die? Is it false memories, scams, or tall tales? Personally, if I had experienced this myself, I don't remember if I have or not, I have felt a lot of deja vu, especially as a child. Or if I had a child that was experiencing these signs, I would really think, especially if I could prove it and it was just the child was really remembering things that no child should know, especially about a certain case. They're saying, hey, I'm this person. I would definitely think I'd be a little skeptical, and then as you hear more and more, I'd definitely be intrigued, very, very intrigued, and think it was really cool. Definitely. My favorite case was Dorothy Edie. What is your favorite reincarnation case, if you might have one? And How would you react if your child exhibited these signs of reincarnation? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And I think this subject is definitely interesting, and I highly believe in reincarnation. Do you? Do you guys believe in it? Thank you all for watching, and let me know what you think. Let me know. Leave those comments. And I will see you guys next time on Tales Told in the Dark.